Wow, welcome to another episode of My Story to the World. We are so excited to have you guys again join us today. And with me today, I have an amazing guest today. Sir, I would like to do the honors, introduce yourself. They are all watching.
Okay. My name is Samuel Asamudo. Uh, I'm from Nigeria, but I'm now Canadian.
Okay.
My family has been here since 2010, but I joined them in 2017.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yes, Nigerian, Canadian, or is it Canadian, Nigerian? Which one?
Nigerian, Canadian, Nigerian. Depends on what context you're
Depends on the context.
Yeah.
Welcome, sir. Oh, what we really love you to share your story with us today. So, without further ado, I will just okay. We always ask how old people are. Are you comfortable saying how old you are?
I'm over 65.
Okay. Yes. So over 65. So yes. So we'll hear your story now. So please go ahead.
Okay. My story is a very simple and direct one. It is the story of a young boy from the rural part of Nigeria. Specifically, I was born in a little village called Ikot Udoma in Eket local government area of Akwa Ibom State. And I wasn't born into a privileged family. So I had to struggle to go through school. I had to persevere. I had to deny myself to be able to get some education in order to have, in order to be mobile socially. And I think I achieved that. So my story is a story of perseverance, is a story of sacrifice, is a story of endurance, is a story of discipline. I always like to tell people that to a very large extent, I'm a self-made man because my father passed on when I was just about 7 years in primary two.
Wow.
And I didn't have an uncle. I didn't have an auntie. It was just my mom, who wasn't a highly educated person. But she also denied herself in order to provide for us. I was seventh out of 8 children.
Wow.
From the same mother, the same father.
Amazing.
Yeah. So
that's a large family.
Yeah, in those days in Nigeria, that was an average family. 8 children, 9 children, even 12.
From the same mother and father?
Same mother, same father.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So, being born into a family that is not privileged and in a very rural part of Nigeria in the late 50s, you can see that it couldn't have been easy. At a stage, the Eastern Nigerian government introduced universal primary education sometime in 1957, but the program fizzled out after a few years. So
what happened?
Well, maybe inadequate funding or improper planning. But by the time I started primary school, the UPE scheme had failed. In fact, the school that I attended in my village started as a UPE school, but UPA had failed, so the county council had taken over the school, and so we were required to pay school fees even in primary school, while people in the western parts of the country were enjoying free primary education.
I don't get it. So some parts of the country had it, other parts didn't have?
Well, Nigeria at that time was a federation of 4 regions: the northern region, the western region, and the eastern region. In 1963, a new region was created, that is the Midwest region. So there were 4 political units plus the federal government in Lagos. And so at that time, the regions had a lot of autonomy. They collected their revenue and they contributed to the federal purse. They had their policies, the regions opened their universities. Eastern region opened University of Nigeria and Nsukka in 1960. Western region opened University of Ife in 1962. And then they opened, University of Lagos was federal. The northern region opened Asamudo University in 1962. So the regions were very strong. They were not depending on the federal government for federal allocation as we have now. That was probably the golden parts of Nigeria. At that time, people were complaining, but they didn't know that what would come in future
Worse.
was not going to be so.
It could be worse.
So in primary school, I remember that in primary 4, we had to pay about £5 as school fees. Primary 5 and 6, we had to pay £8.10. And so if you don't have parents that were working, like I didn't have a dad, I had a mom who was not working. So going to primary school was challenging. Many children couldn't go to primary school. They all left school. They abandoned school because of lack of money to go to school. And don't forget, you have to buy your books. You had to provide the desk on which you would sit in the classroom. They were not provided by the school.
Why didn't they just change region?
Well, that would not be possible.
Yeah, no, it wasn't that easy. Just move the
That
family.
that was a constitutional issue. The constitution had specified the regions, and so you couldn't change.
Wow. So that left some parts of the country like educationally less advantaged than
Yes.
other parts that had that boost, that initial foundational boost.
Yeah, that's why the Western region was ahead. The universal primary education that Chibawologo started was very successful. And then the North wasn't doing as well. Not because of lack of funding, but maybe the people had their own system of education. That is the Almajiri system of education. So Western education was something new. And so it took some time for them to really get used to Western education. I know the Almajiri education is tied to the Islamic system, Islamic way of life.
Yeah.
So they preferred that one. In the East, most of the schools were mission schools.
You now successfully go through in the midst of these challenges with no auntie, with no uncle.
It was just my mom. Like I said, she sacrificed a lot. Some of my siblings had to drop out of school. For whatever reason, they preferred me to go to school. I think I showed a lot of promise. I used to do very well in school. So my older brother, who was 5 years older, was asked to stay at home so that I could complete primary school. And so after I completed, he now did his own.
Why do they do that in Africa? Because he was already in the program? Why didn't he just wait for him to complete and join after?
Well, I think
Just
my mom had, there are certain things.
Yes.
There are certain things that maybe the Almighty just has
like
a
it's
way.
intangible.
Yeah, the Almighty has a plan which you may not know, but you are just acting out that plan without really being conscious. I used to do very well in school, so I think that was why they wanted me to proceed.
So after your primary education, was it hard also getting in secondary education?
Well, I remember that when I was in primary 5, my class teacher asked me to go and write exam with primary 6.
Wow.
She was very confident that I would pass, and I did pass. And I was asked to proceed to primary 6 and not waste time, just go and write the primary 6 exam from primary 5. But I refused. I thought I needed to get everything. I didn't want to miss anything. So and also I said I didn't really have anybody to send me to secondary school. So why am I in a hurry? So I still finished my primary 5, and then I went to primary 6 and also finished. So after completing my primary education, a cousin of mine had a private school, and he invited me to come to the school. So I actually passed through the school without paying any fees on scholarship because he was my relation.
So this was a cousin of yours?
Yes.
Oh, that's great. So even though we don't have uncles or aunt, look out for your cousins. Say hi to them. They might favor you. I'm learning.
He actually trained a lot of us. I wasn't the only person. Every single person from my family that went to that school went on scholarship. He was a good man.
That's great.
Yeah.
Wow. So you finished your secondary education. How was your university now?
Well, I had to, because I was there for just 3 years, and the rest of it, I had to take tuition, stay at home, and study to have my GCE on advanced levels. And after that, I started teaching in the school, in my cousin's school. It was a way of also
paying forward.
Yeah, helping others coming behind me, since I had benefited from that school. So I was a teacher there for about 3 years. And I now got admission to the Polytechnic Calabar.
How was being a teacher? Didn't people see the age difference? You're a teacher and you're
A lot of my students were actually older than I was.
Wow, wow.
I had some of my students who were my classmates in primary school. They were my classmates even in the school. But I finished, I wrote my exam, I passed, and I came back and I was teaching them. Well, some of them were not happy. You can understand that.
Understandable.
But I think I still have a very good relationship with some of them. I see them. Some of them have gone far academically. When I was working in Lagos, I met some of them. I run into some of them from time to time. They still recognize me as their teacher. But I was just about 17 years when I started teaching.
So it's not today you've been teaching, because when I met you, you were teaching. It was at one of your lectures that I met you.
I actually loved teaching. I went to do a course in business education. And after that, I went on the 1-year mandatory National Youth Service program in Bauchi State.
So, which university did you now go to? Because you were teaching in secondary school.
Yes, after I finished my NYSC, I worked for some time. I taught, then I left. I went to work for the local government system. And then I went to University of Uyo.
Oh, nice.
Where I studied accounting.
Oh.
Yeah.
University of Uyo. Wow. Amazing. That's great. What else do you want to share with us? We are here to hear your story.
Like I said, having to go through all this, took time because I didn't just finish secondary school and then I proceeded. So every time you stop, you work for some time, you earn some money before you start the next one. So that is why I didn't graduate early because I had to start, go and work, that kind of thing. But all through this time, there was a lot of pressure on me. Some people said you should get married because people of my own age in my community, had gotten married and they had children. But I still wanted to get a degree before I could do that, and I eventually did that. So what happens is that after I graduated and got good jobs, so my friends in the community who thought that I was spending too much time on education, they now understood. So some of them actually came to me and said, "Wow, we now understand why you were so concerned with going back to school. When we thought you were doing very well, you were working in the government, you had a car. We thought you were a big man, but you were not satisfied. You still wanted to go back to university and have a degree. Now we understand."
What made them say that? Because you were now successful?
Yeah, because I now had a high-paying job, and
as an accountant?
Yes. So I think it was a kind of inspiration to others coming behind me that if you invest in education, at the end of the day, it will pay off.
It will.
Yeah.
And I think there's a key lesson there. Education is the way to break the cycle of poverty. Like, if you invest in yourself, train yourself, it doesn't matter where you started from, right?
Yes, that's very true. I sometimes have opportunity to advise parents that instead of building houses that they hope to bequeath to their children, it is better for them to send the children to school. That when the children come back from school, they will build better houses in better locations, because the houses you build now, the current design, what is in vogue, by the time your children grow up, they are highly educated, and they come back, those houses may not be fashionable to them again. So they may not even be interested in staying in those areas where those houses were built. But with their education, they can make decisions for themselves. They can buy houses or build houses in more posh environments that befit their status. So instead of houses are good, but education is number one, because the multiplier effect from education is much higher than just having a house. Recently our governor did something which is very commendable. A young lady from Obubra in Cross River State came back from NYC, and there was a viral video that showed her. The dad had just a small hut, and he sent this girl to school. The girl graduated, came back, and when the girl came back with her NYC uniform, she marched into the compound and gave the father a salute. She removed her NYC, the khaki,
the jacket.
Yes, and wore the father with the cap. So the governor saw it and he was so impressed. This man didn't have money to build. The money he used to train that child, he could have used it to build a house for himself, but he denied himself and decided to send the girl to school. A girl, in those days, some places they won't send female children to school, but this man invested in education. So the governor, even though he's governor of Akwa Ibom State, he decided to go and build a house for the man in Cross River State.
Wow.
Many people didn't like it. So why are you using our state money to build a house for somebody? The man said, no, that such a human being, such a man who did that needs to be encouraged. And he builds a brand new house for him.
Wow.
Yeah, so that is the importance. That is the message I have been trying to give to many people.
Yeah. Education is very, very important.
It is.
Yeah, so tell us anything else you want to share with us that you think the audience will learn from?
Well, I want to say that since after my retirement, I have been investing a lot of time and energy trying to do research into the history of my people, just to try to understand a few things. And what I have found out is that we are all connected, we are all related. And so all this discrimination, you are Igbo, you are Hausa, you are Yoruba, you are Akwa Ibom, you are Eket.
You are Cameroonian.
In fact, what I found out is that the people of Akwa Ibom actually migrated from the Cameroons. I'm serious. They migrated from the Cameroons according to the history that we have been privileged to read. And some of them settled in Arochukwu in Abia State. In fact, if you go to Arochukwu today, there is a village called Ibom, Akwa Ibom, Ibom. So we were there. Then the Igbos were living with us, but there was a misunderstanding. There was a war. They fought a war. The Igbos, the Arrows, hired mercenaries who had guns. We were using bows and arrows. So they defeated the Ibibios, and some of the Ibibios had to migrate across. There's a river there. They migrated across to Ikono, to Uyo, to Ikorebene, and then they started spreading all over. If you go to Wikipedia, you can read the history of Aro, which actually captures. So the Arrows themselves, they remember the history, they cherish it. Because today there are three sections of Aro. The Igbos, the Ibibio, and the people, the mercenaries that they hired. So you have like a tripartite arrangement. The three groups are ruling in Arochukwu up to today. So in Akwa Ibom State, there was a time everybody in Akwa Ibom was Ibibio. There was Ibibio State Union in 1928. Oron, Eket, Anang. They were all together. They fought for Calabar State Movement. But politics came and destroyed that. So there, Anang won't accept that they are Ibibios. Oron won't accept that they are Ibibios. The Efik won't accept that they are Ibibios. Everybody. So we have split up into smaller units. And this brings some enmity when it comes to politics. But if you go into history, if you are honest, you see that all these people are one. They came from the same roots.
Now, how come their languages are different?
No, they speak the same language, basically. You only have dialectical differences.
But the oral language is really different.
Oral language is close to Eket dialect. Those are dialects. Eket has a dialect. Their dialect is heavier than the Ibibio. But you can still
understand.
Yes. Anang is closer. Efik is an offshoot of Ibibio.
Really? And Efiks always claim they gave birth to Ibibio.
That's not possible. The Efik people were living in Oran. There was a misunderstanding. Just like we had a misunderstanding in Arochukwu. There was a misunderstanding. So they left. And from where they settled in Creektown, it's just across the water. They crossed to the other side. And then they started expanding. So they are basically from the same stock. The culture is almost the same. But you see, what happens in Efik language is that the missionaries came, Goldie and his colleagues now came, and they established the, I've forgotten this, Pope Warden, and then George Goldie and all the rest of the people. So these people helped to they studied Efik language. They improved it. they raise it to another level. You see, so that language is polished and they use it to write. They wrote an Efik English dictionary. They translated the Bible into Efik. And then a body of literature has developed from there. It's a very nice language.
Meanwhile, the Ibibios didn't have that advantage.
The Efiks, you see, the Efiks were on the coast. They were middlemen. You see, when it's just like King Jaja of Opobo, who left Bonny, settled on Opobo Island, which is closer to the Atlantic Ocean. So the white men had to deal with him. So the Bonny people were cut off. So he now cornered all the trade. So the ethics
But
on the
whenever
coast,
you speak about Judge of Opobo, we remember him as a hero. But the way you bring him out,
he was a hero in a way that in that he contested for power with the whites, with the expatriates, the traders, and the colonialists. He confronted them. He was a very clever guy, very, very clever. He wasn't highly educated, but he was a very clever man. He was a good businessman. The other side of him is that all this was for him. He didn't care about other people. So he blocked the European traders from having access to the hinterland. So he would go and buy the goods at low prices from the hinterland people and then come and sell to the whites. The same thing with the ethics. So the ethics occupied a vantage position. You know, they were on the coast. The quarries and the foods were higher upland. And we in Ibibio area, we were on the other side of the river. So the traders, the missionaries came and met them there. So they became middlemen. They bought the goods from Akwa Ibom people. Well, there was no Akwa Ibom now, from the Ibibios, from the Ikoi, from the Igbos. And then they sold to the supercargos. And they became very rich. But those people also wanted to go to these areas to penetrate inland so that they could buy at the ethics, stop them. The same thing that Jaja did. So it was purely commercial.
wow.
Yeah, purely commercial.
So,
Yeah.
I wanted to say, what goods were they trading? What goods were they buying?
First, they started with human beings.
Oh my goodness.
They were selling human beings. Calabar was a center. There is a place in Nikorabasi called Point of No Return. When you cross there, you know you are gone. And Bonny, you know, they had so many centers of. It's only the Benin people who refused to sell their people. The Oba of Benin would not allow it. They didn't sell people. All the other coastal chiefs were trading in slaves. But in 1808 or thereabout, the British Parliament passed a law banning abolition of slavery. They abolished slavery, free town. So the freed slaves were taken there. Somebody like Bishop Ajayi Crowther was one of the slaves that were freed by the British. He now went to school. He became a bishop, missionary, and he was a linguistic expert. He wrote Yoruba language, grammar of the Yoruba people language. He wrote the Igbo language. Oh yes, translated the Bible.
That's amazing.
You see what it did. So you can say that.
So the ethics were trading people. What were they getting in return for this?
Manufactured goods from abroad. The white people brought their wares. They needed slaves.
Was it mirrors they were giving them?
Drinks, alcoholic drinks, mirrors, clothes, everything you can think about.
And they would sell their people. So you said the Benin people didn't sell their people. Is it the Benin? You know, there are two Benins: Benin, the country, and Benin, the state.
No, the Benin Empire, where you have the Oba of Benin was ruling.
In Nigeria.
Yes, that's the Benin that you have. He was a very powerful ruler. They didn't sell people. Yeah. They did not sell people. They didn't engage in slave trade. He needed his men to fight for him to make money, not to sell them. Yeah. But Jaja was a notorious in that.
Notorious slave trader. Wow.
But Jaja also, after the era, well, by the time Jaja came, slave trade had been, Jaja was like 1860 something, 1870 something, 1880. By that time, officially slave trade had been abolished. So he was involved in legitimate trade. Yeah, sometimes he formed alliance. That's why I said he was a very clever man. He formed alliance with some white traders and was shipping his goods directly to the UK instead of selling to the middlemen. That was one of the reasons the British didn't like him. They had to take him out.
Oh, they did.
Oh yes, they did. They invited him to a meeting in one of their vessels. They gave him assurances of his safety. When he got there, they arrested him and took him to, I think, Ghana. Then they tried him and banished him to a place in the West Indies. But eventually he wrote appeal to the King of England. After some years in exile, he was allowed to return. But he died on the way back. The suspicion is that the British poisoned him, put something in his tea. They didn't want him to come back.
Because
you see, there were these powerful rulers. Jaja was one. Oba of Benin was one. There was governor. There was I've forgotten his name. There was a governor. There were about 4 or 5 of them. They were very powerful. Without taking them out, the British would not have been able to take over the Niger Delta. So they took them out. They took Jaja out 1887. They took Oba of Benin 1897. And the governor of Benin was also removed. So that created the way for them to promulgate what they call the All Rivers Protectorate in 1884 after the Berlin Conference. So they sat down in Berlin and shared Africa amongst themselves. The British got Nigeria, they got Ghana, they got Syria.
Was it by sharing
They just sat down at a conference and shared. I'm serious. What the British did, the British came to our place like in Eket sometime in 1884, I think September. They've got the people to sign a treaty of protection. So they went around signing treaties, signing and signing and signing. So when they went to the conference, they now presented, see, we've already established a relationship. And with those treaties, they gave them Nigeria. They're very clever people.
So
the French did their own. Germans, the Germans only had a part of Cameroon. They had Togo. They had a place called Southwest Africa. Yeah, the French got a bigger territory. But the British were very smart. They got fewer territories, but those fewer territories were more useful to them. Like, look at Zambia. Look at they call it Southern Rhodesia, Northern Rhodesia, now Zimbabwe and Zambia. They had Tanzania, they had Kenya, they had Uganda, they had Nigeria, they had Ghana, Gambia, Sierra Leone. Those were very, very profitable areas.
Wow.
So we helped them to build their empire because they got all the raw materials from Africa. Yeah.
So because they have this treaty, they could just get it at like a cheap price or what?
Well, you see, you are producing raw materials here, and somebody comes from abroad and offers you. When these people did not come, you didn't know that those raw materials could
be
useful. Yeah. But they came, they offered you prices that you thought were very good. But they underpriced those articles.
Of course.
Yeah. In Nigeria, we had granite, we had palm oil, palm kernel, rubber, cotton, all kinds of things. And there is a very interesting twist that I always like to tell people.
Yes.
The people who were ruling in, I mentioned the Oil Rivers Protectorate created in 1884. And then they changed it to Niger Coast Protectorate about 1890 something. This was a private company, United Africa Company. It was a company that got a charter. So they call it Royal Niger Company. A company chartered by the Crown, the British Crown, to come and rule a territory. They provided the police, they provided railway, they provided telecommunication services. They established the administration. They started mining the minerals. So by 1899, the British government discovered that the Germans and the Germans and the French were coming to West Africa with full force. So a private company could not compete. So they said, okay, sell your concession to the British government. So the Royal Niger Company sold part of Nigeria to the British for £865,000, plus a share of future income from mining activities. Can you beat that? That is the way it was. So it was business. The same thing was done in South Africa. You hear about Rhodesia, Cecil Rhodes. That was the name. This one was, I've forgotten the guy in Nigeria. Cecil Rhodes was the person who did it in South Africa. So they called the territory Southern Rhodesia, Northern Rhodesia. It was like the country of Cecil Rhodes. So he formed a company that exploited that territory. And the king of Belgium owned the place now called Zaire. He owned it, his own personal possession, and he was getting the produce from there, rubber mainly. And he introduced something. The supervisors had to force the natives to tap more rubber. So if you don't meet a certain target, they cut your hand. So the number of hands that the supervisor presents is evidence of his hard work. Today we say, when they talk about, these people killed this, nobody mentions the king of Belgium and the number of people he killed in Congo. There's a whole book written about it. It's called, I think, The Heart of Darkness or something like that.
Wow.
These human beings. The world has really improved. The world of the past was bad.
We've come a long way. So you're born at the right time. Hello, if you're watching us, you're born at the right time. It's not a time when you don't meet imagine in your office now, if you don't meet your work, all you have to do is be fired, right?
Oh,
but
yes.
This one, how about
cutting
the hand because it didn't meet up your target?
And this is a fact of historical facts. You can Google it.
Oh my goodness. Oh
Yeah.
my goodness.
So I think we've made some progress, although Nigeria as a country hasn't, because of corruption, we haven't made as much progress as we should have made. If we continue the way we were in the 4 regions of the 1960s, we would have been very far. We would have gone far.
Because each region will be competing to make their region the best, instead of all depending.
All the minerals in your territory, you derive the revenue. Like in Canada, then you contribute to the federal purse. That's what happens in Canada. So because of the Civil War, the change, the idea then was that, we needed all the resources to prosecute the war. But when the war finished, we never went back to what it was. Instead, what the country has done is to continue to split them into smaller units called states. We started from 12 states in 1967. When I was in primary school, we used to celebrate Children's Day, May 27, when 12 states were created. Then from 12, he went to 19. He went to 21. Then he went to 36. And up to now, people are still agitating for most states. the more states you have, the more dependent they are on the federal government because they are very small and the federal government keeps a lot of they like crude oil is federal.
Which is one of the things I think, because I took a trip to that region where the crude oil is. Those people can't really farm. The rivers are small. They can't really fish. So
That's
it's like, and there is really no care for the environment where they get those resources.
That's why they talk about restructuring in Nigeria to restructure maybe into 6 geopolitical zones. But it boils down to what I said before. Human beings need to know that we all come from the same source. And when you know that the Yoruba man and the Igbo man and the Efik man and the thief and the Hausa and the Fulani, that you are all children of one almighty father, then you should not be fighting.
True.
Yeah.
I know, Isaac, and I think that thing is so true. I think the head knocking, or how like put it, the fight, yes, the fighting is always,
it's a divide and conquer strategy.
Yeah, because I see that now we are here in Canada. Some people feel they are different, like different races. We have different races here, and then we all feel we are different because we have different colors of skin. But then when we go back to like a place like Nigeria, we all feel we're different because we speak different languages. And then if you even come to the language that we're talking about, the Ibibio people, those dialectical differences divide us. Now we come to even the family unit.
It is
there's still the division. So how do we get everyone together? Like to just see them at the same.
It's a question. Okay. When you come to the Western world, look at Canada, a country of immigrants, Germans, English, French, Swedes, Polish, Czech. They all came here and they are running a country. The same thing in the US. They come together. It's a melting pot. So, in Africa, we are still not able to overcome that clannishness. You know, in different parts. You remember what happened in Rwanda some years ago when the Hutus and the Tutsis were fighting. It is still happening in Congo. It's still happening in different parts of Africa. Tribal war. Yeah. It's because of we don't really appreciate why we are here. Why are we here? Why are we here on earth? So when we answer the question, why are we here? Then we'll know what direction we should be going. All the things we do should be tailored towards achieving the purpose of our being here. We bring in religion to help us. Unfortunately, religion even creates more problems most of the time. Because people kill for religious purposes. Yes, it happens. So religion should be able to teach us the right way to live, the right way to treat our neighbors. Because in all the religions, they talk about loving your neighbor and so on, but it doesn't happen.
So what do you propose? What do you think? What message will you send to the people watching? What do we do from here? How can we make it better?
Well, when we realize that we are all sojourners, we are all sojourning on the planet. This is not our home. This is a school. The earth is a school. We are coming here to learn. You remember the story of the prodigal son who told the father, give me my own share of the inheritance. Let me go away. And he went away. And they said he lavished all the gifts that the father had given him. And at the end of the day, he went to eat with pigs. And one day, he remembered where he came from. He said, in my father's house, there is enough to eat and drink. But I have sinned against heaven. I'm not worthy to be called the son of my father. But I will go back to him and plead with him that, Father, I know I have wronged you, but just take me as your servant. the prodigal son, we are all prodigal children because we came from somewhere. And the purpose of our coming here was for us to acquire to develop spiritual maturity. But when we came here, we started enjoying the things of the world and we forgot the purpose of our coming. So my hope is that one day, like the prodigal son, we will remember where we came from and why we are here. And then we will make it like a resolution to go back to our original purpose of coming here so that we can return back to our original home as fully mature human beings. Because we are all prodigal children, in a strange place. This is not our home. Jim Reeves, who used to say, I don't know whether you have heard, this world is not our home.
I've heard it before, yes.
We are just passing through.
Passing through.
So that is what we need to do for us to remember who we are, where we came from, and why we are here. Then every other thing else will fall into place.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, thank you so much, sir. So I've learned a lot. Is there any last thing you want to share with the people watching?
Well, I will go back to where we started, that education is a very important thing that all of us have to emphasize.
Yeah.
Nigerians actually value education a lot. I hear that in the US, Nigerians, rank very high amongst the educated people with masters, PhD, and so on. Education is very good. We need education for social mobility. And education also broadens our mind so that we are able to relate with our neighbors. But then education alone is not enough. The other part of it is the spiritual part of life. That is even more important. If you acquire PhDs all over and you are not spiritually mature, you are not getting anywhere. Because education is intellectual. So it is something that is limited to the world of matter. It can't take you back home. No, it can't. It is your spiritual development that makes you a better human being, coupled with your education. Yeah.
I agree.
So those two things, education, spiritual maturity. And if you are spiritually mature, remember what Jesus said, love thy neighbor as thyself. I'm not a preacher, but it is very, very key. So if you are spiritually mature, everybody coming across you is your neighbor. So you love that person. If you love somebody, you don't want to take what belongs to you. You don't want to fight war. And we are not talking about love from the lips. We are talking about real love.
Yes.
That you have the interest of your neighbor at heart at all times.
True. That's why we are in true love movements.
I see. So
I
believe you are exuding love everywhere.
We are.
That's interesting.
Wow. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us today and sharing your story with us. We've learned so much, and even like how you shared about the history and what we really enjoyed. And that's where I met him. I met him in one of his lectures. I really enjoyed.
I don't know which of the lectures.
I know there's one you did virtually that I joined. So
okay. Talking about how
the history
Akwa Ibom State developed to where it was. Yeah, I remember.
Yes. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you also for having me.
Yes, thank you.
I hope your viewers will get a few useful things from what we have.
Yes, for sure. And until we see you on another episode of My Story to the World, thank you, Mr. Sam Asamudo, for joining us today. And everyone, bye-bye. Enjoy.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
But your love won't give up.